So I think we can start. Yeah. So first of all, I appreciate that you have taken time to join this session. I mean, you could probably be with Prime or Netflix or with your family members. The fact that you have joined the session shows that you really are interested in what you call taking tax aware decisions, as I call it. It is important that always you take prudent and financial decisions for which being tax efficiency. Tax efficiency is one of the what you call paramount what you call important aspect of your investment decision. So it is at my money stage. It has always been our endeavor to help you take prudent financial decisions, and in this, and so that you are able to accomplish your financial goals in the most efficient possible way. So in this journey, right, we are actually what you call today. We have Sudhindra DS. He's a chartered accountant, and he's having around 5 years of experience in helping clients with taxation. He specializes in tax planning as well. And Sudhindra, now over to you. I think you are actually running poll or something.
Yeah, I'm at the start. Yeah. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, you can go on, Sudhindra.
Yeah. So a quick note by Benjamin Franklin, where he has said in one of the letter, in this world, nothing can be said to be certain except the death and taxes. So taxes is certain if you're earning income. So it's like a complementary. If you earn income, the taxes on that income comes along with you. Certainly, there is no way where we can avoid taxes. But yes, we can save those taxes through tax planning and on-time filing of taxes, payment of taxes and filing of returns. So good morning, everyone. I'm Sudhindra. So today we'll walk through on the basically on concepts of what are the categories of income and how the transactions are taxed. And then we will, meanwhile, we'll also go into the real scenarios where each of you would have come across on how to say on various taxation transactions. So before we go ahead, so I just start a poll. Yeah. So let me understand the audience. So just select on the options which are applicable to you. Another 10 more seconds. Yeah. So these are the results where 70% of the people are having the salary income, the rental income, around 50%, and quite a bit of people are trading in shares, around 65% of you, and around 60% of you are having your interest and dividend. Yeah. So keeping in these lines, we can certainly look on where are the various options where we can efficiently save our taxes. So the agenda, so we will just walk through on the what are the various sets of income, what transactions will come into those categories of income. Then we have a separate tax treatment for securities. So we'll walk through on how the mutual funds are taxed, the securities, the share transactions are taxed, the derivative, how are they taxed. the short term, long term, speculative, intraday. So those things will get in. And this certainly we feel bad when we or no one is happy incurring a loss, but there are advantages of incurring a loss. So what are those? So there we come across in tax loss harvesting. Yeah, and changes in the income tax website. So there's a new website which has been uh, launched by the government of India. So we'll walk through what are the new features which are there and how does that benefit for our filing purpose. And we are much aware that there's a new regime of taxation which has been introduced, where without much of the savings or investments being made, we end up paying the same taxes. So we'll compare what's old and what's new and what are the differences, and accordingly you would be able to take a decision on which regime to opt for. And and what are the due dates of filing the returns, and what are the consequences if we file it late, and what are the documents required for IT filing. So this would be the flow of the presentation today. So starting with the heads of income, the basically 5 heads. Those are the income from salary, house property, business or profession, the capital gain, and the other sources. So the salary income of the income which you earn from your in employment, where your employers pay you salaries. House property, where you have given your house property on rent or on lease, and those income from those things. Business or profession, say you are a CA, you are an architect, or you are an engineer who work on a freelance basis. So you come under profession. Capital gain, so you have an immobile property, you had a land, you had a building, and you sold it in last year. So how the taxation of it comes in. Or you had investments in mutual funds, or you invest in shares and you sold it. So the capital gain impact there. And the other sources, so the interest income, the dividend income which you earn from those investments being made, or a simple bank interest, savings bank interest, or fixed deposit interest will come into the other sources. So this is just a brief. So salary. So what is salary? So any wages, the pension which you get, the gratuity which you get from your employer, or suppose you're in the month of December and they pay you and you request your employer to pay your January month salary in earlier, so that you can you are in need of. So if you're getting any advance salary, then even that part's form of a salary. Replace the word month December to March. So say it was in the month of March 2020, March 21, and knowing to the fact that lockdowns would be imposed and you are in need of salary, and you ask your employer, pay me at April and May month advance salary in this month itself, in the March month itself. So in those scenarios, it will form part as your salary for the previous financial year. Then there are allowances which are exempt. So those are the HRA, the house rent allowance, which you, that is again based on the calculation, and the leave travel allowance. Yeah, there are, when we go into the new regime, these aren't allowed. So in detail, we'll get into what is allowed and what is not allowed in case of the deductions under the new regime and the old regime. So how can you save your taxes if you are having your income from salary? Suppose you are staying with your parents, then it's always advisable pay rent to your parents. Maybe it's suppose both yourself and your parents are in the 30% category, say like you're more than 10 lakh income. And it's still advisable to pay a rent to them so that they can claim a deduction of 30%. So we'll go next when we get into house property. So we'll go into that 30% deduction, which as a landlord, they can claim. So you'll be able to save some amount of taxes there. And in case if you are in a rented premises, Please submit the rental agreements or PAN card, the rental receipts of the employer, of the landlord to your employer, and any other documents which your employer has. And those documents are to be shared within time. And in case you're changing your employment, say for 4 months you're with company A, after that you change to company B. So generally what happens, you tend to miss out to sharing the income of company A in company B. So what happens in those scenarios? In company A, while they're calculating your taxes, they would have factored basic exemption of 2.5 lakhs and standard deduction of 50,000. Again, in company B, the same process will be continued by them also. 50,000 and again 2.5 basic exemption. So you will be happy during the year that you have paid less taxes, the TDS is deducted less and you have taken more home salary. But at the time of filing returns, where the things come back around, you need to you will be summing up the incomes from company A and company B, whereby that excess deduction of which has been claimed by company B of those 2.5 plus 5, that is amounting to 3 lakhs. On that 3 lakhs, you'll be required to pay tax. So how it would be paying taxes on a monthly basis, or how it would be paying the taxes at the time of filing of returns. So it's always advisable to declare all the income sources to your new employer. So another poll. So in case, I just wanted to check, have you submitted your documents, the rental documents, the life insurance premium receipts to your employer? So just answer yes or no there. Yeah. So around 56% of the people have submitted and 44% haven't submitted. So you have a remedy here if you haven't submitted the documents. So just make sure at the time of filing of returns, you share all those documents with your tax consultant, or if you're filing it yourself, just make sure you disclose those payments, the investments made under appropriate category. But make sure you are having the sufficient documentation evidences for that. The reason why I mentioned to ensure that there are sufficient documentation is being that since last year, and you are much aware that all the income tax filing process or the processing of the income tax return is completely digitalized. Where in case of any variation in between Form 16, so given by your employer and income tax return filed by you, say ideally you had paid in taxes. Ideally, you had paid insurance premium of around 1 lakh, but you had submitted to your employer only the insurance premium of 60,000. So balance 40,000. Now you are claiming it. Well and good, you claim, but make sure you keep a record of those documents in a separate folder. So later date, when it's taken into processing, you would be getting an automated notice saying, please submit the relevant documentary evidence for the variation in the claim of premium amount or variation in claim of deduction amount claimed by you. So in that time, the process would be much more simpler and faster then. Or there will be few genuine cases where in few of your companies ask you to submit all the documents by end of Feb, and you will be paying your premium in the month of March, and ironically, you would be paying taxes on that. I mean, the TDS would be deducted on that. So even in those scenarios, you can use this remedy and claim back that excess TDS, whatever has been deducted by your employer as refunds while filing your returns. So this is up from with respect to the employer. So if any questions are there, just put it in Q&A. So as and when it's required, I'll take it up, or at the last it would be answered. So the next we have house property. So as we've seen that there are a couple of people who have rental income. So we classify the income from house property as let-out property and self-occupied property. So what is let-out property? Say you have having a property, additional house, and you have let it out, and you are getting a rental income from the tenants there. So how is it taxed? So whatever the rental income you have received, suppose you have received 5 lakh rupees of rent, and you are paying the PBMP tax, the other municipal tax amounting to rupees 20,000. So the net taxable rental income would be 4,80,000, and on that you will be claiming a deduction of 30%, which is towards a repair and maintenance. So this is standard. Say probably in that year you would have spent more than 30%. Are you eligible to take more than 30%? No. If you are spending only 20%, is it lesser of 20 and 30%? No, it's standard 30%. So irrespective of the amount you spend on the maintenance or on the repairs of that property, you can claim a deduction of 30%. And if you had borrowed any loan for construction of that property or purchase of that property, and if you have paid any interest on that, then you can claim deduction of that interest paid. Say you do not have any house in your name, but yet you have constructed a house, or you have purchased a flat and you have taken a loan and you are paying interest and principal, or you are paying EMIs for it. Even in that scenario, you can claim whatever the interest which you are paying on the housing loan borrowed as your loss. So what happens to that loss? You can set off that loss with your salary income. Say you are having your salary income at 10 lakhs. You are paying interest on housing loan amounting to rupees 1 lakh. So your net taxable will be not 10 lakhs but 9 lakhs, where you can efficiently save 1 lakh of taxes on 1 lakh. But say you're paying interest amounting to 3 lakh. In this scenario, it is lower of actual interest paid or 2 lakhs. So if you're paying 3 lakhs, you'll be entitled to only a deduction of up to 2 lakhs. And if you're paying 1 lakh, then it's 1 lakh. So what are the other tax saving which are available, or precautions which you need to take it? So if you suppose both husband and wife are working, then it's better you take a joint housing loan, so that both, generally what happens, even if you're taking around 40 lakhs or 50 lakhs of housing loan, it's advisable to take 25 lakhs in husband and 25 lakhs in wife, so that both of you will be able to enjoy the deduction of principal repayment and the deduction of interest repayment. Because as I said, there is a restriction on the limit, on the amount of interest paid and even in the principal. So principal, it goes to 80C, where the limit is 1,50,000. For the interest, it's 2 lakh. So this is where one of the way where you can save it. Or taking the example of where you have a house property, or you have a house and you have let it out for rent. So in those scenarios, even if you go for a joint ownership with your wife, where even she is earning, then the income would be split across both. Suppose this would be much more beneficial when you are in the slab of 5 to 10 lakhs. Here I'm taking the example of old regime, while taking the examples of while calculating the taxes, because the deductions are available only in the old regime. say you're in the bracket of 5 to 10 lakhs, so you'll be taxed at 20%. So again, this rental income will pull you to 30%. So if both of you are claiming the housing, the rental income is being split, then certainly you can save taxes there. And as a caution, which you need to take care is, certainly you would be investing in pre-construction properties. Say there's apartments being constructed by a developer. They say they will give you the possession of the property only after 3 years or only after 4 years. They are starting the construction now. But they again give an option like you can go to loan and pay the EMIs. So what happens there? So in those scenarios, say you took the loan in January 2020 and the construction got completed on December 23. So during these 3 years, you have paid EMIs around 10 lakhs. And on that 10 lakhs, the interest portion is amounting to 6 lakhs. So ideally, what would have happened? You would say, okay, sir, we'll for a simple understanding, we'll take those 6 lakhs as proportionate to 3 years. 2 lakhs, 2 lakhs, 2 lakhs for each of the years. So ideally, you would have thought that those 2 lakhs, I can claim it as deduction in year 1 and the next 2 lakhs in year 2 and the next 2 lakhs in year 3. But make sure that this cannot be claimed. The reason is that the regulation stops you. So what does the regulation say? If you're taking loan today and the property is getting completed after 3 years and you have paid interest. So in our example, we have paid interest of 6 lakhs. So you can claim that 6 lakhs after completion of the project or after completion of the construction. So in 4th year, you can claim the deduction. So on how much amount? That 6 lakhs has to be proportionately divided for 5 years. So 6 lakhs divided by 5, 1 lakh 20. So in 4th year, you'll be claiming 1 lakh 20. 5th year, you'll be claiming 1 lakh 20, and 6th year, you'll be claiming 1 lakh 20 till the end of 9th year. So again, you must make sure that 1 lakh 20 is factored in the 2 lakhs interest which you pay in case of self-occupied property. If it's in case of let-out property, there is no limit. So again, this has to be factored in while the taxation component, which you need to make sure while you're purchasing a house or while you're constructing your own house. And in case of let-out property, there is no limit on claiming of deduction on interest which is being paid. You can claim, suppose you're earning a rental income of only 3 lakhs, but you're paying an interest of 5 lakhs. Yes, you can claim the entire interest. And the other thing which you need to ensure is you to collect a separate certificate, which we call it as an interest certificate from the bank. So whereby they mention it, they give a certificate mentioning what is the interest component in it, what is the principal component of the EMIs which you have paid during the year. So this will help you or the tax consultants to consider the amounts while filing of the returns. And in case of a future reference, you will be having that document handy. So next we have the business. So the income which I earn is from my profession. I'm a CA and my income which I earn. And there are engineers, there are few accountants who work on consultant basis or on a freelance basis. So those things will come under profession. Or you are having a trading business, again that will come under income from business. So if we suppose I am offering certain transaction as business income, then I should own my business and I should have carried on that business activity. Suppose if it is of a other person business and I am working with him and I say this is my business income, no. So the person who carries his business will be the business income for that person. and that business must be carried out during the previous year. And what are the profit you earn in that particular year will be taxed. And in case of any, and again here, income doesn't necessarily mean profits. So income includes losses. And we have something, say, we take an illegal transaction and you end up saying, okay, this is an illegal transaction, I need not pay any taxes. No. Taxation doesn't differentiate whether it is a legal business or illegal business. To the extent of levying of taxes, it just says whether it is a business and whether you're earning income from it. Say, take an example of kidnapping. So that is illegal. That is prohibited in India. So you earn some income. So income tax can come and say, okay, you have earned so much of income, you pay taxes on it. And if you are, yeah,
if the police intervenes and gives the money back to the person who has paid the ransom, then is it reversed?
no, because ideally they wouldn't have earned the income there.
Okay.
Or taking the examples of narcotics and drugs, where which we are seeing more nowadays. So income tax department can go and say, okay, you have earned so much of income, pay the taxes on it. I agree it's illegal, but yes, taxes are to be paid since you have earned profits, since you have earned income. And in case if the expenses are in personal in nature, then you need not pay any taxes on it. Sorry, you cannot claim deductions on it. So this is just the basics of business, income from business. So the capital gain here, let's not factor in the securities, the shares, the mutual funds, or the derivatives here. Say that you're having a house property. Say you're having a house which you had purchased in April 2000. So you purchased it at 20 lakhs then. So, and that was a government value then, and you have purchased it at that rate. So after you purchase the house, you felt that the house is quite old and you need to do renovation to the house. So in the year 2005, you did a renovation to the house and spending close to around 4 lakhs rupees for it. And you stayed in that house for around next another 15 years. Then in the year 2020, you thought, let me sell off this property and let me shift to another house. So before selling off the property, you again, it was quite, since the house was quite old, you incurred few repair expenses, the painting, the flooring, the electricity, the electrical works. So again, you spent around 2 lakhs there. And in 2021, say you listed on a platform and you're selling it through that platform. And so while you're listing that property in the platform, again, they say they charge you 50,000 rupees. And at the end, you are able to sell the land at 80 lakhs. So hello?
Yeah,
Am I audible?
yeah, I think a couple of,
Just a minute.
minutes of pause, but I think you can start from there. Go to the session. Yeah. You can start.
Should I start?
Yeah, you
So
can do it.
okay, so I'll come back with the example. So you have you purchased a house in 2000, spending 20 lakhs on it. In the same year, you incurred for painting, for renovation, amounting to 4 lakhs. Then in the year 2019 or 2020, you spent again 2 lakhs for the maintenance because you were planning to sell the house. And in the so to sell it, you listed on one of the platform whereby you sold it at 80 lakhs and they had charged 50,000 for listing on their platform. So this would constitute as a long-term capital gain. But what would be the amount of gain on which you are required to pay tax is where something has to be looked into. So taking the computation here, so the full value of consideration, so will be the sale value. So that's the 80 lakhs here. The cost of selling. So ideally you had paid 50,000 for listing your property and selling it. So that 50,000 constitutes here as cost of selling. Then the cost of acquisition or the index cost of acquisition. So what is indexation? Say the value at which you had purchased or the value of which you had spent 20 lakhs in year one or in 2000, the value of that 20 lakhs is not the same. Certainly it would have increased, right? So that is what we say the indexation. So we take the cost inflation index, which would be notified every year by the government or the income tax department. So we take that into factor and we calculate the what is the cost of indexed cost of acquisition. Probably 20 lakhs, which was 20 years earlier. Today it may be 40 lakhs. Next we have improvement. So at the time of purchase, as I said, you had spent 5 lakhs to improve the house. So that again on that 5 lakhs, you'll be eligible to claim the indexation. So that 5 lakhs today, say 10 lakhs. So that would constitute cost of indexed cost of improvement. And in the year 2020, the 2 lakhs which you had spent on the electrical work, the carpentry work, the painting, the flooring, so that the house is fit to sell. Again, that expenditure can be considered in cost of improvement. So calculating all those, where you arrive at the net capital gain. So again, there are various investments available to save the long-term capital gains, not going much in detail there. So probably if you're selling a house, you can purchase the gain. If you're investing another house, you get that tax saving. Or if you're investing in national saving certificates or the NHAI bonds, so again, you get the tax saving benefits there.
So one question here, like I think a couple of people are asking for it. So what if, there is a vacant property due to the want of tenants? So is there any remedy for that?
Vacant property. So taking this as a property which has been okay.
Which since it's rented out and yeah.
What income tax says is we would classify it as deemed let out property. So what is deemed let out property? If you had rented that property, so what would be the rental income which you have earned? So we would consider that and accordingly pay taxes. Unfortunately, this is one of the provision which has been inserted, but yeah. So the way to save taxes there is probably you can give that house property to your parents, not to your spouse, because if it goes to your spouse, the clubbing provision attacks. But if you're gifting to your parents, the clubbing provision doesn't come into the picture. So if you can gift to your parents, then you can end up saving the taxes there. Probably you can come up and say, how does the income tax department come to know there is a property which I didn't let it out? If you remember, last year you would have declared it in your income tax return, and current year, no, you're not filing it. And certainly these are the things where income tax department, even they are getting updated themselves by using the analytics there. So those are the ways where even department will come to know about this thing.
So one more question is like, in case of you have properties outside India, so what is the kind of like implication there?
So if I own a property and I am outside India.
No. I am a resident Indian. Okay. But my property is outside of India.
Okay. So this is the rental income, which we say is income which is earned in India. So when we say if it is outside India, we have the taxation treaties, the double taxation treaties in picture. So suppose if you are in US and if you are earning rental income from the property, then the tax, so on that property, if you are rented it out in US and if you're paying taxes there, so that would be taken as a deduction in the tax amount which you would be offering in India. So again, that would be cross-verified with the Double Taxation Treaty Avoidance Agreement, which we set as DTAA with India and US. So accordingly, the tax impact varies.
So one more question, follow up to that. So suppose like this property is in UAE where there is no taxation. So how does it imply? Yeah.
So when there are no taxes paid, then there are no tax benefits here. Since there are no taxes paid there, so you need to end up paying taxes in this country.
Okay.
So ideally, it would be like you will not be paying taxes in two countries for the same source of income. But in few cases, what happens because of the treaties or because of the way the incomes are taxed in different countries, you will be ending up paying more taxes. So again, as I said, these things will depend upon the tax treaties between the countries.
Yeah, and one more question follow up to that. I think so. The thing is, like, say, if you have property abroad and you are selling it, like, do the indexation benefits everything apply same as here? Like, how does that work?
The indexation, yeah, you can claim, but again, so this is something which I need to confirm you on that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think you can continue. So we can take up the questions at the end. I think there are questions coming in. I think I request the audience to please add it in the Q&A section so that we can take that up in the end of the session. You can go on.
Yeah. So as I said, the last head, the income from other sources. So if you are earning any dividends from the shares which you have invested, or interest from the bank deposits, or interest from the securities, and if you have any royalty income, or let's say you are a director of a company and there are board meetings conducted and for which you charge a sitting fees, director sitting fees. So if you're earning any such sort of income will be considered as other sources. Say you had an house property which you were planning to sell, which you had purchased in year 2000, which you are planning to sell, and you found a seller and you received a token advance from him amounting to, say, nominal token advance 50,000. And later the buyer said, no, I'm not interested in the property, or for whatsoever reasons, he says he will not be able to buy the property. And certainly you will not be refunding that 50,000 advance. So that 50,000 advance which you have received and which has been forfeited, which will not be refunded to the buyer, will be offered as income from other sources. Say you have a friend who has gifted you some money or who has gifted you a car. So that would constitute as income from other sources. Or say you're gone to a competition, Kaun Banega Crorepati, and you go there and win 1 crore rupees. So that again 1 crore is taxed under other sources. Though we have a separate category in the income from other sources saying like casual winning, it is under the main head of other sources. So now we'll get into detail of securities transactions. Since I understand that most of you are either in mutual funds or investment in trades, and quite a bit of you in derivatives. Let us see how are these transactions, these instruments are taxed. So these are basically taxed under 4 different categories: so long-term capital gain, short-term capital gain, speculative business income, and non-speculative business income. So which transaction, what type of product will be classified under these categories, we'll see. So looking into the business, speculative business and non-speculative business. Say you're trading intraday trading in stocks and shares. That is where before the delivery, you place a purchase order and you place a sell order the same day. Then that activity will constitute as speculation business. So any income earned from that activity or loss earned from that activity will be under this category. Then we have futures and options where you would be trading other index stock derivatives or commodity derivatives through this NSE or the BSE there. So again, if you're doing this activity, it would be taxed under non-speculative business. So speculative and non-speculative here means speculative is by the word where we can take the meaning as the speculation is more. The futures and options are speculative, but again, they are for the purpose of taxation, it is classified under non-speculative business. So the normal income, say as a trader, which you're earning income, that will come under non-speculative business. Or as a CA, as my profession, with the income I earn from my profession will classify under non-speculative business. So there is a only transaction which comes into speculative is intraday. All other business transactions or from the profession, not necessarily being from futures and options. As I said, the normal trade or being an engineer working as an freelancer, those activities will also classify as non-speculative business. So apart from this, the shares, the mutual funds is where come into the picture. Suppose you're having equity-oriented mutual funds of more, and if you are holding more than 12 months, then those equity shares will constitute as a long-term capital asset. So that would be taxed at 10% if your income is exceeding 1 lakh. Say you had purchased shares 5 years ago for rupees 5 lakhs and you're selling it today for 8 lakhs. So you'll be paying a tax at 10% on not on 3 lakhs of gain, it will be on 2 lakhs. So 3 lakhs is the capital gain. So 1 lakh is where we remove, and only on amount exceeding 1 lakh is where you'll be ending up paying the taxes. So 10% on 2 lakhs, 20,000 would be the taxes which would be applicable there. So what if I'm holding those shares for less than 12 months? So those shares will be classified as short-term capital gain, and the gain will be taxed at 15%. So here you may have the question of, I would be paying brokerage of 25 rupees or 0.01%, which my DMAT provider, the Angel, the Kotak, the SBI, the HDFC DMAT accounts where I hold, they charge these brokerage charges. Can I claim that as a deduction? Is maybe one of the things which comes up to your mind. Yes, you can claim, but STT, no. See, if you're paying any STT, you cannot claim that as a deduction. If you're paying any brokerage for purchase of transaction and sale of transaction, you can claim both the brokerages as an expense, and wherein you'll be arriving at a lesser gain and end up paying lesser taxes.
One more question here, Sudhindra. About GST?
GST, yeah. So brokerage, say you will be paying on a transaction 50 rupees and 18% on 50 rupees. So totally amounting to 59 rupees you'll be paying as a brokerage. So you can claim the entire 59 rupees as expense.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Then intraday, where you place an order of both purchase and sell on the same day, then that would be taxed under slab rates. So those slab rates are, we are much aware, 2.5 to 5 lakhs, 5%, 5 to 10, 20, and more than 10 lakhs, 30%.
One more incidental question, like in case of like foreign equities, like how does it work? Like say, for example, if I actually buy stock in the US and sell it, then how does it work, the taxation?
So the taxation for that works in, as I mentioned earlier, of this. Because if you are trading in stocks of in an exchange recognized in India, is where we get those lower taxation benefits. If it is any capital asset outside India, then this is what comes into the picture. If you're holding for more than 12 months, then it is long term. If you're holding for less than sorry, if you're holding for more than 24 months, it's a long term, less than 24, it's a short term. Yeah, and ideally, the question was asked earlier whether the indexation benefit, yeah, indexation benefit would be available.
Okay.
So one thing need to ensure is the lower rates of tax, that is the 10% and the 15%, is only for equity shares and equity oriented units or equity oriented mutual funds. Yeah. What if it is a debt fund, or what if it is other than equity oriented mutual fund? So how do we classify that? So we classify that as 36 months instead of 12 months. So you have a debt fund, you have invested on it and it's more than 36 months. So you will be taxed at 20% with indexation benefit. And if you're holding for less than 36 months, as per the normal slab rate. The futures options, as I said earlier, it's on non-speculative business income and it will be taxed at slab rates. So you may get a question like, say, I'm into a hybrid mutual fund, which invests both in equity and both in debt funds. How are it taxed? Or so for those things, we need to consider which is a major portion of that fund. Hybrid. So suppose it's a hybrid fund, 60% is into equity, 40% is into debt. Then that would be classified as a equity fund itself, equity oriented mutual fund, and these provisions will apply. So how to know whether it is what's the proportion of investment, whether it's in equity or in debt? So those things you'll be able to get through the investment document, or your investment advisor will be able to guide you on this. So as I was mentioning earlier in the beginning of the presentation, like tax harvesting and tax loss harvesting. Generally, we feel bad when we incur loss, but yet there are reasons to feel happy if there is a loss. So there is some tax harvesting and tax loss harvesting. So what is tax harvesting? Say you purchased a share of Reliance in the year 2019, April 2019. You sold it in April 2021. And you had a capital gain of amounting to rupees 2 lakh, of amounting to rupees 1,80,000. So ideally, you would be paying tax on 80,000 because, as you know, once the long-term capital gain exceeds 1 lakh, you'll be paying tax on over and above 1 lakh. So how do you say that? Tax harvesting is where comes into the picture. So in the next slides, we'll go into an example on how tax harvesting and how tax loss harvesting benefits you. And tax loss harvesting is where you sell a share or you sell those securities which are in loss, so that you can set off that loss against the capital gain which you have made in the other shares. Suppose, let's take the example of equity shares. So you are having a capital gain in equity shares, and you have mutual funds where there is a loss. That is basically unrealized. So gain of 50,000, and you have a loss, unrealized loss of 10,000. So you can claim, you can redeem those mutual funds and adjust those loss against the capital gain of 50,000 and pay taxes only on 40,000 instead of 50,000. So this is one of the benefit which you get. So that is like you sell it at 10,000 loss and you purchase it at the same rate. So ideally, at the end of the day, you'll be having those securities, but you enjoy the tax benefit. Even in tax harvesting is where we'll see next. Then with the example here. So we have two securities, security 1 and security 2. So let's think both of them are equity shares or equity oriented mutual funds. So where Security One I had purchased on 1st of February at a cost of 10 lakhs. The value as on 10th March 2020 is 10,80,000. I sold it on 1st of January 21. The sale consideration is 12 lakhs. The Security 2, where the date of purchase is 31st of May at a price of 4 lakhs. And the date of sale was 28th February 20. Date of sale is 28th February 2021. My mistake. Then the value is 3,50,000. So what would be the taxation impact without any tax loss harvesting or tax harvesting? So I sold it at 12 lakhs. I purchased it at 10 lakhs. I have a capital gain 2 lakhs, and on 2 lakhs I'll be paying 10%. Also on 1 lakh I'll be paying 20% capital gain. So this is how the picture comes in. As I said here in the earlier example, this is as Security 2 I haven't sold, so I would not factor that in my computation. So what if I follow the tax harvesting and tax loss harvesting? So tax harvesting, taking Security 1 here. As I mentioned here, the value as on 10th March 2020 is 10,80,000. So remember, it's a long-term capital gain since the holding period is more than 12 months. So here I sell it at 10,80,000. I had paid a cost of 10 lakhs and capital gain 80,000, and I pay capital gain or zero capital gain as it is less than 1 lakh. So it would be like I'd be selling on 10th of March and I will be purchasing on 10th of March. So earlier so it would be at the end of the day, I will be having those securities with me. Then in the second year, I would sell the sale of Security 2. As I mentioned here, this is not sold. This is that if I have sold the Security 2 in year 2, I would be getting a loss of 50,000. So here I have a capital gain of 1,20,000. Since this again, when I sell and purchase, I would have purchased at 10,80,000. So I have purchased at 10,80,000 and I end up capital gain of 1,20,000. And for the Security 2, I sold it and I incurred a loss of 50,000, and net capital gain is 70, and I end up paying no tax. So this is one of the advantages which we can get through tax harvesting and tax loss harvesting. We can save or we can minimize our taxes. But one thing which we need to make sure is that the activity is a bit time consuming, where you need to track and you need to have sufficient fund balance. Because suppose if you place an order today, if you make a sell order today and the transaction is executed, you get the money after 2 days. And if the price of that securities after 2 days has spiked up, then you would be spending, the cost of purchase would be more. So you need to ensure that you are having sufficient balance in your bank accounts, so that the sale and purchase activity takes place in the same date. And again, the other factor which you need to ensure is that just check with your advisors, so that there would be not much variation in the cost happening after the repurchasing picture. So as I was mentioning here, that there is a loss of this 50,000, I can adjust it here. So those are set off. In the earlier example, I had mentioned that of the house property where you are having a self-occupied property, you're having your own house and you're paying interest of 1,20,000 for towards a housing loan. So you can set off that. So this is what set off says. So there's a table which explains that what are the losses which can be set off against other incomes. Say you're having a loss from house property. Say that you're having your own house, you're paying your interest, housing loan interest, that is 1,20,000. Against which category of income I can set it off? You can set it off against all the heads of income. You can set it off against other rental income if you're earning, or against your salary income, against your capital gains, against your derivatives income, against your intraday transaction income, or against your even your dividend and interest income. So other thing which you need to ensure is for the financial year 2021, the dividend income is taxed under your hands. Earlier, DTT was there and the company was paying tax, dividend distribution tax, and you weren't paying any taxes. But make sure now you declare those dividends while filing your income tax returns. You offer those incomes for tax. So for against those income, you can adjust this house property loss. So if you're having a non-speculative business loss, say you're a freelancer and you had incurred more expenses, you're a freelance engineer, and you incur more expenses for promoting your business, and you ended up losses. Against which category of incomes you can set it off? Certainly not against salary, but against all other heads of income. Say you're having rental income, you can set it off against loss against that income. But if you're having loss from intraday trading activity, you can set it off only against intraday trading income. You can't set it off against any other heads. Again, when it's a long-term capital loss, it's only against long-term capital gain. In case of short-term, you can set it off against long-term and short-term, and not against derivative income. Say you have a equity mutual funds and you have incurred a loss of 50,000. Can you set it off against derivative income of 2 lakhs? No, you can't set it off against your derivative income. If there is no other income if there is no other capital gain income in the current year, then what's the option? Or if there are losses which are unadjusted in the current year, then what is the option? So then we have the option of carrying forward to the subsequent years. So these are the time limits for which we can carry forward the house property loss, the non-speculative, the derivative or the normal business loss for 8 years. In case of speculation business loss, it's only for 4 years. And in case of long-term capital loss, short-term capital loss, it's 8 assessment years. But what we need to remember here is this table only depicts the losses of the current year, which can be set off against the incomes of the current year. Say, I have a loss property in the current year. I have paid interest on let out property of 5 lakhs. And my salary income was only 3 lakhs. And there is still 2 lakhs of income which cannot be adjusted. So I carry forward that 2 lakhs to the next year. So when I carry forward that 2 lakhs to the next year, I can adjust it against only my rental income. I cannot adjust it with my salary income, or I cannot adjust it with my other sources or my business income. I can adjust only with my house property income. So this is a restriction which is being placed. So for current year losses, you are having the options to set off against other incomes. But if you're carrying your current year loss to subsequent year, then only against those particular heads. Apart from speculation, loss from speculation loss, which is restricted to 4 years, the other losses you can carry forward to 8 assessment year. So advice here is make sure if you're having a loss to file the returns before the due dates. If you're filing after the due dates, then you cannot carry forward these losses. So just ensure that the returns are filed within the due dates.
So what about
Even
what about losses that you might incur from any of the scams, or like say the company vanished, or like say for example, I mean this you can claim only if it is registered. I mean it is if the securities are traded to a exchange which is registered, right, in India. So suppose like say I have like invested in Bitcoin and I ended up with losses. I mean, is there anything that can be done with that?
See, taking the example of Bitcoin, still the government or planning to regulate. So we need to wait there. Yes, the incomes or losses can be claimed, but whether it is a business income or whether it's a capital gain income, only time can say it.
As of now, the regulation is not clear. That's what you say,
Not
right?
clear. So the government is in the stage of regulating it. So once they're regulated, the taxation angle comes into the picture. But it's not illegal. They say it's legal, but the taxation, they're silent on it.
Right. Thanks. Yeah, I can go ahead.
Yeah. So this is up to losses. Then we are having the deductions. So if you're a salaried income, or if you're having business from house property, or if you're having your business income, then what are the various deductions and the maximum limits to it? So if you're paying insurance premium, if your employer is deducting provident fund, or if you're investing in PPF, ELSS, or if you're repaying your housing loan. So here you need to make sure that housing loan here, it's only to the self-occupied property and not to the let out property. And if you're paying any EMIs there, the principal component portion will be considered under 80C. So altogether, you'll be getting a tax benefit of 1,50,000 in total. So this would be, suppose you are investing 1,20,000, you'll be getting only 1,20,000. If you are investing 2 lakhs, it will be lower of 2 lakh on 1,50,000, it's 1,50,000. The other option is the National Pension Scheme, commonly known, where we tell it as NPS. So if you as an employee are contributing it, then maximum of 50,000 is allowed as deduction. But there is another option of employer contribution. This is again similar like the PF, where in your salary slip you may see employee contribution to PF, employer contribution to PF. The same way, there is also employer contribution to NPS. So again, in that case, you can claim additional deduction apart from 1,50,000 and 50,000. So this has a separate limit of, if you're a central government employee, it's 15% of your salary. If you're not a central government employee, then 10% of your salary. The salary here is the basic plus DA. So if you're having a basic salary of 50,000 per month, so 6 lakhs per annum. So if your employer is contributing 60,000, you can claim that as an additional deduction. Again, health insurance premiums which you have paid for yourself, spouse and children, you can claim 25,000 in all the three taken together. And in case of parents, separate 25,000 to them. So in total, you can claim 50,000 and not more than 50,000. Say your parents are senior citizen, and if you have paid a premium of 30,000, then you can claim 30,000 plus 25,000 of premium which is paid for yourself, your family, of totally of 25 plus 30, 55,000. So if your parents are, say, senior citizens, or yourself, you are a senior citizen and you're paying premium of 30,000 or 40,000, or take 50,000, you can claim the entire amount of premium if you are a senior citizen. If you're not a senior citizen, then the limit of 25,000 applies. In case, and 5,000 for preventive health checkup. So you paid a premium of 18,000, and around 5,000 you would have spent for your health checkup or a blood test. So those things you can claim it as deduction. So totally 18 plus 5, 23, you can claim it as deduction. Or say you have your parents who are more than 60 years, who are senior citizens. You haven't paid any premiums on them. And you incurred 40,000 towards the medical. They were hospitalized and you had incurred few medical expenses. So that 40,000 can be claimed as a deduction. So the condition here is that premiums, if no health premium has been paid towards senior citizens and you had incurred medical expenditure, then you can claim that as deduction. You can't claim both premium and medical expenditure. Either of these is allowed. Say yourself or your kids have taken a loan and have gone abroad for education, and interest would have been paid there. So such interest again would be claimed as deduction. So if you're paying interest for the educational loan, for yourself or your spouse or your children can claim this deduction here. So again, next we have the donations. So if you're making any donations, those will be qualified as deduction. But the other thing which you need to make sure is there is a separate calculation involved. So in few transactions, you can claim, say you have deposited, you have donated 10,000. You can claim entire 10,000. In few cases, you can claim only 5,000 of it. In few cases, you'll be able to claim only 9,000. So that is where the with limit and without limit speaks about. So what is with limit and without limit is that with limit means the calculation depends upon your income. Say your income is 5 lakhs and you have donated 60,000. So limit here speaks about 10% of your adjusted total income. So 5 lakhs is your income. So 10% of it, 50,000. But you have donated 60,000. And those trusts were eligible for 100% deduction. But yet you will be able to claim deduction only of 50,000 and not 60,000. So that is where limit comes into the picture. And with respect to 50% and 100%, it's like there are few trusts which are eligible only for 50%. So how do I know that whether it's 50% or 100%? You can check with them, with those trusts on what is the tax exemption benefit which as a donor which I'll be available for. Because while they getting a income tax deduction certificate, this would be classified under which category they come into. So accordingly, you need to take the benefit. So again, you may feel, okay, the trust is in the category of 50% limit. I'll claim it in 100% without limit. How does the government know? I have paid it through banking channel. But yes, these things can be tracked through the details, because while filing of income tax returns, we need to mention the name of the organization, the PAN number of the organization. So anyways, if there is a PAN, the department has its own set of information. So this is one of the precautions which you need to take, need to ensure that you disclose it under appropriate category and you claim appropriate category, appropriate amount as deductions. Say your employer is not paying any HRA, or you are a business person and you're staying in a rented premises. Yet you can claim deduction under 80GG based on this calculation. So if you're paying a maximum of 5,000 per month or the 25, as we have this calculation in HRA, the similar calculation here. And you're having your savings account and you're having your or a salary account. So again, salary account will fall under savings account category, and you're earning interest of around 5,000, 6,000 rupees. So you need not pay taxes on that up to 10,000. Say if you're earning income for more than 10,000, then over and about 10,000, tax is applicable. Say 15,000, you're earning interest from your savings account itself. So 5,000 tax is applicable. Say if you're a senior citizen, you can claim a deduction of 50,000, but this 50,000 includes the deposit from FD also. In case of a non-senior citizen, it's only the savings bank account. If you're a senior citizen, it may be a recurring deposit, maybe a fixed deposit. Now it may be a savings account. Considering all the three, you can take deduction of 50,000. This is applicable only to senior citizen. So now let's get into the old regime and new regime. So till now we have seen what are the heads of income, how are the incomes taxed, how can I set off the losses, and what are the deductions which are available. Few would be like, I'm not ready to save, or I have my own commitments I need to spend, I need to pay for. Few are saving, making investments, making savings. So which would be beneficial here? So first, let us look into what are the tax rates, what are the differences in new regime, old regime. Then we will get into which would be the ideal regime to opt for, whether a new regime or a old regime. So these are the tax rates and the various slabs. So up to 2.5, it remains the same. 2.5 to 5, the 5 lakhs, 5 to 7.5, 20%, 10%. So this is how it runs. So if it is more than 15 lakhs, the tax rate is 30% irrespective of the type of regime. So what are the pros and cons? Take home salary in old regime would be less, but under new regime, it will be more. Compliances under old regime, it's more because you need to keep the track of all the documents. You need to share those proofs with your employer. In case of new regime, you need not worry about it. Even if you're saving, well and good, you need not worry about submitting those details with the new regime to your employer. So these are the list of reductions, giving a comparison of which is allowed and which is not allowed between the new regimes. So the leave travel concession, which an employee can claim in once in every 2 years, is allowed under old regime but not in new regime. The house rent allowance, the calculation where it comes into the picture, the actual rent paid. If you're in a metro city, 50%. If you're in a non-metro, the 40% calculation. So entire thing will come into the picture in old regime, but under new regime, nil. So even if you're paying rent, you cannot claim any deduction under new regime. And if there are any other allowances which are tax saving, then those are allowed under old regime, not allowed under new regime. The standard deduction of 50,000. Which we get it in the old regime is not available in new. The interest, as I said, I have a own house, I have taken loan for it and I pay interest on it. I'm paying interest of 1,20,000. So under old regime, I'll be losing out that 1,20,000. So in the new regime, I'll be losing the benefit of 1,20,000. Say you are having a let-out property. You are earning a rental income of 30,000 and you are paying interest on that loan borrowed for that property of 5 lakhs. The 2 lakhs loss can be adjusted in the old regime and even in the new regime. So the difference is only in the self-interest paid on your own house, not on the house which you have given on rent. So this is one which you need to keep in mind if you're going for new regime. The benefit of interest paid for the house which is being rented out is allowed. The other deductions of insurance premium, the tuition fees of your kids, the PPF investment, the PF investments are allowed in old regime, but not in the new regime. But the employer, as I said, in the 15% for government employees and 10% for none other than central government employees, if your employee is contributing towards NPS, it's allowed under both the regimes. So two deductions which are allowed under new regimes is that interest which you are paying it in a rent to a property which you have given it out to rent, and the contribution towards NPS by your employer. So the set off of loss under house property against any other head, it's allowed under old regime, it's not allowed under new regime. Carry forward of loss, as it's not allowed under new regime. So you have a house property in the current year, you are self-occupied your own house, and you paid interest of 1,20,000. You cannot claim it as a loss in the new regime in the current year, and this gets lapsed. You cannot carry forward it. So here you may get a question. You are in a new regime, but there is a the housing property loss is anyways factored in here. So you may say, so clients come to me and say, I have income of 10 lakhs and I make deduction of 1,50,000. Taking the factoring of HRA and all other tax saving investments and all, I have 1,50,000. Which regime is better for me? Old regime or new regime is better for me? So this table tries to explain you here. Say if your income is 7,50,000 and if you're saving 1,25,000, the old regime or new regime doesn't make any difference to you. Say if you're saving only 1 lakh, then new regime will help you pay lesser taxes. If you're saving 1,30,000, old regime will help you save taxes. Or if you're earning an income of 15 lakhs, and if you're saving 3 lakhs, then old regime helps you. If you're saving anything less than 2.5 lakhs, then new regime helps you. So this calculation is at taking the comparison of the tax rates and the deductions which comes into the picture. So you may feel that, okay, current year I am having an income of 15 lakhs. I have saved 2 lakhs. I'll take the new regime. But next year I am having a salary of 15 lakhs itself, but I'm saving 3 lakhs next year because I'm making more investments next year. Can I come back? This is one of the questions which comes up in most of us. So the answer for that is yes. So opt in and opt out. So opt into new regime and opt out from new regime. So if you're opting to new scheme or the new regime, then make sure you file another form 10IE before filing of your income tax returns. So if you file this, then the whole calculation of why you're filing your relevant ITR form will be changed to the new regime. So this form is mandated. Say you're not filing this form and you want a new regime, possible? Not possible. So this has to be filed, and form 10IE has to be filed before the due date of filing income tax return. So that opt-in and opt-out facility can be made n number of times if you are not having business or profession income. Say if you have done your income through intraday or your transaction in derivatives, then the flexibility to opt-in and opt-out is not available. But if you are having, apart from business income, say you are having only salary income, as I said, 15 lakhs minimum. To if you are saving 2 lakhs current year, you opt into the new regime. Next year you are saving 3 lakhs, so you will opt out from the new regime and go to old regime. In year 3 you say, oh no, in year 3 I'm able to save only 1,50,000. Can I come back to old regime? Yes. So you can come in, come out, opt in, opt out n number of times. There are no restrictions as long as you're not having income from business or profession. So what if I'm having business or profession? You can opt out only once. Means first year I opt in to the new regime. year 2 I opt out, then that's closed. I cannot again come into the new regime. So if I'm having business income, I can opt in once and I can opt out once. It cannot be more than once. So just ensure that if you're having business or professional income, you're cautious enough in selecting the new regime or old regime. And if you're under only business, if you're not having any business or profession, you're having only the investments in equity, mutual funds, some capital gain, dividend income, the interest income, the salary income, or the house property loss, house property income, you can anyways look into your each of the years which is beneficial to you. Which for new is beneficial in 1 year, opt for new. Old is beneficial for other year, opt for old. There are no restrictions in this. Next, we have this new income tax filing portal. incometax.gov.in. So earlier it was Income Tax India e-filing.gov.in. Now the new portal which has been developed by Infosys, it's at incometax.gov.in. So what are the benefits here? Yet, yeah, if you want to test this, the benefits, it's better you wait for few more days as all the options are not full-fledgedly available in the portal yet, as it's since launched just around a week back. So the benefits which the new portal is giving up is more effective options for payment of tax. If you have noticed, currently we can pay taxes only through internet banking. But in the new portal, they are giving the options of UPI, payments through NEFTs. And it is said that even credit card payment, the payment of taxes through credit card may also come in. It's also said that a separate mobile application for filing of income tax return will be available to the users, and it would be a one single dashboard where most of the details required would be available and faster refunds. As we said, was around 44% of the people earlier said that we haven't submitted the documents with our employer, so higher TDS has been deducted there. So we file, and while filing of returns, we factor in those investments or the savings made now, and I'm claiming the refund. So generally it used to take around 3 months to 6 months for us to get back the refunds. And now it's said that the refunds will happen quicker. How quicker? Only time can say it. We need to wait for that. And the customer care. So the customer care service is being said which would be provided more actively through a dedicated helpline. And you can update the profile and few other details in the income tax portal. So these are the new features which are being listed out. Let's wait and see how these features would come in, how it would be helpful, and how faster things move. So the documents. So if you're a salaried employee, make sure you're having your Form 16 handy. If you're having any share transactions or mutual funds, make sure you get those demat accounts through the providers. And again, these reports are quite easy to be downloaded from once you log in. The bank statement, in case of premiums paid, which was not given to your employer, make sure you have those documents collected in place so that while filing of returns, you can consider those. And any other documents, say you sold the property for worth 80 lakhs, keep the sale deed of the purchase agreement, the documents evidencing that you have spent on renovation for amounting to 5 lakhs, the brokerage or the listing fees which you have paid to the platform for that 50,000. So that those things would be required for calculation and filing purpose. And don't wait till the last minute to share these documents with your tax consultant, or if you're filing yourself, make sure that you keep these handy, and always advisable to file before the due dates. So what are the due dates? So these are the extended due dates for the current year, means the current assessment year. So if you're a salaried person, if you're a business person without audits, or you're a partner in a partnership firm where partnership firm is not into audit, or audit is not applicable to the partnership firm. So in those cases, the due date is 30th September. For rest all the cases, it's 30th of November. If you're a company, or if you are a partner where the partnership firm is liable for tax audit, or there is a transfer pricing which is applicable. This transfer pricing mainly comes into the picture where holding and subsidiary company between two countries, where company A is in US and company B is in India, and they have transactions in place. That is where transfer pricing will come into the picture. Then 31st of January is the due date of filing belated return or revised return, as 31st of March, which was there till now. Say you had a loss from speculative business, or you had a loss from derivative activity, and you filed the return of 10th of October. Then you cannot claim then you cannot carry forward your income, the losses there. So main thing which one needs to keep in mind is, if you're having loss, at any cost, you need to file the return before the due dates. So what if I'm filing the return after due date? So late fees of 1,000 is applicable if your total income is less than 5 lakhs. If it is more than 5 lakhs, then 5,000 is applicable. And interest at 1% per month is also applicable on the tax amount. So you'll be ideally you will be incurring additional 2. That is, one is in the form of late fee, another in the form of interest. Say you sold the property in the month of May, for that 80 lakhs, the example which we are taking till now. So should I wait till the next year, July, to pay the taxes? No, we need to pay advance tax. So what if I am not paying any advance tax? So you'll be paying additional 1% of interest. So how those amounts are being calculated? Say, as I said, you estimate your income to be 10 lakhs for a year. And for that 10 lakhs, your tax amount is coming up to rupees 1,50,000. So that 1,50,000, you need to split it at 15%, 45, 75, and 100. So 1,50,000 into 15%. So much of the amount has to be paid before 15th June. Then 1 lakh into 45%, 1,50,000 into 45%, I need to pay it before September. What if I'm not paying? Then you'll be paying interest for 3 months there. So it's always better to pay the advance taxes. See, if you're a salaried employee, anyways, TDS would have been done. And if you're having any rental income or any other incomes, then you need to factor in only those incomes for which is not being considered by your employer. Because say you are having a rental income and you are declaring it with your employer. So TDS would have been anyways done. So you need not factor in the advance tax. As in any other scenario, you need to factor in here. Yeah, so let's take into the questions here.
Yeah, I request the participants to put your questions on the Q&A box so that we can address that one by one. Meanwhile, I think I have a few questions, Sudhindra, which you can answer. Yeah. So I think one of the participants is asking, like, say, okay, Mr. Manish is asking, like, so the 10 IE is only applicable if I'm switching from old regime to new regime for the first time, or like, is it every time? I mean, that's the question. I think you can clarify that part,
Yes.
maybe.
By Manisha.
Yeah. So yeah.
I have a salaried income. Is that the question?
No. So the question is, like, say, whether 10 IE has to be, the form has to be submitted every time I need to switch a regime, or
Uh,
like,
See, for the first year, we need to file it, but for the subsequent year, I suppose it should need not require to file, but need to wait and watch how the clarification comes from the department.
okay,
Because
so
since it's the first year, we'll start with that. The subsequent, as and when the department notifies, those things can be looked into.
okay, so one more question is, like, say, can we set off short-term gains or losses with the long-term of the same year? Same year.
Yeah, short term with long term of the same year or subsequent year is possible. The vice versa. The long term with short term is not possible.
Yeah, I think that answers the question. So, and also, like, a couple of users are asking, like, okay, so can I pay what you call the insurance premium, say by EMI, and also like can claim the deduction under 80D. So this is with respect to the health insurance premiums that they are
Yeah.
talking about.
So what happens in case of EMI?
Yeah,
So if this transaction is like, see, EMI basically the banker, the person who is giving you the benefit, the entire amount would be paid by him,
correct,
and you will be paying it in installments.
correct.
So in those scenarios, you can take the entire amount, but make sure you won't miss the EMIs.
Okay. And the question, like one person, like say, she's saying that housewife doing only trading. Okay, her short-term capital gain is 3.2 lakhs. Can she claim the rebate of initial 2.5 lakhs under standard deduction and pay only the balance as tax?
Yeah,
That is possible.
available. For short term, it's available
Okay.
because that is under slab rates, right? So that is available.
Okay. And so another question is, like, say, what if you lose money in sale of your properties, particularly if the property is outside India, due to like erosion in property value, you don't end up paying for the sale, or you have to offset the loss, basically.
Didn't get you. I mean, there's a property
Outside
outside
India,
India.
and
Okay.
it is being sold at loss, I think.
Okay. So you just claim your losses in the current year while filing the income tax returns here.
Okay, so that is
Keeping in
possible, right?
mind the again tax DTAA, the tax treaty between both the countries.
Yeah. I think one of the other questions I think are asking is, like, in case of fund of funds, I think so mutual funds investing in foreign equities, which is definitely a fund of fund. I think in that case, as far as I understand, the taxation is like a debt fund taxation. I mean,
Yeah.
am I right, Sudhindra? Like, say, because like
Correct.
fund of fund
Because
taxation, yeah,
as I mentioned earlier, equities means it may be in for US stock exchange it is a equity, but income tax says if it is a stock exchange in recognized stock exchange in India, only then it will be factored in.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think that answers the question. And in case of share trading, how does one estimate income in advance and pay the advance tax?
Yeah. So what happens here is, say you did a transaction capital gain in the month of December 1st. So while filling up the form, the income tax form, we need to give the relevant date of purchase, relevant date of sale. So make sure you pay the relevant portion of advance tax by 15th December. So that even though the utility calculates that the advance tax for this particular transaction is applicable only on Q3 and not on Q1 and Q2. So for that, make sure you give out the relevant dates appropriately.
Okay. And so this is from Mr. Dinesh Arya, and he says like, I am a 66-year-old and only consultancy income. I take a loan against equity share and buy house. Then can I adjust the full interest against my salary income, or is it restricted to 2 lakh every year? So that is his question.
They take not looking into the taking loan against equity share. That's not looking into that. But yeah, the year one you pay 2 lakhs, year two pay you also pay two, year three also two. You can claim year on year.
Yeah. I think okay. So many of the users are asking to share the presentation. I think we will be sharing it through a link in the mail. I think as a follow-up mail. I think that is will be done. And I'm having a health insurance policy provided by my employer, which covers my family and my parents, for which I am paying a premium of around 26,000. Apart from that, if I take a separate policy for my parents and for me and my parents, can I avail tax benefits for both those
Yeah.
policies?
Yeah, you can claim for both the policies, but make sure the limit of the 25,000 or the 50,000 is complied with.
Yeah. So basically, I mean the cumulative amount should not exceed the
Correct.
threshold or deduction. I think the questions are same. And if you said if house property under construction, then after taking possession, you said interest of the interim period to be deducted in 5 years, right? Say 5 lakh is total interest, then every year you can actually get 1.25 lakhs interest deduction. Then what happens to the interest paid after possession, say 3 lakhs?
Yeah.
How much
So
deduction allowed?
yeah, 1.25 plus 3 totally amounting to 4.25, but a maximum limit of 2 lakhs which comes into the picture there.
Yeah, so whether you are actually what you call deducting the previous years or like say the current year, the maximum limit still stays, right?
Yeah, 2 lakhs itself.
Yeah, yeah.
But in case if it is a let out property where you have rented the property, then you can claim the entire amount. So this is where you can do renting it the property to your wife and collecting a rental income. She claiming a HRA and you are able to enjoy the benefit.
Okay. I think we don't have any more questions. Meanwhile, I have something to share with you all. I'm sure most of the investors who are here have been using our platform, My Money Sage. And if you are not yet actually registered on the platform, or if you're not been using, I would suggest you can actually do that. I'm sharing the what you call link on the chat box. I'll also be sharing my screen and probably explaining you a little bit of the features of My Money Sage, and also we do have what you call tax filing and tax planning services. So Sudhindra is one of our what you call empaneled chartered accountants who will be helping our clients with their tax queries as well as their tax issues. So you can also go through the what you call the tax filing pricing on our platform. And if you think that that if you need any help with any of your tax filing services or tax planning services, do reach out to us. And do register on our platform. It is a free plan. Basically, it is a free for life plan wherein you can actually you can manage your money, you can invest your money, you can also plan your investments, you can actually track your investments. I'll just give you a brief overview of the platform. Hold on a second, and meanwhile I'll share my screen. Yeah, hope you're able to see my screen. Yeah, so this is for somebody who have not already registered on our platform, so that you can actually look at. It is a free registration for you, and it's you have a basic plan where you can actually register for free for life. Simple things that you can do on our platform is this can actually replace your Excel sheet where you are collating all your investments. One of the key challenges when it comes to managing your money or managing your investments or managing your personal finances, I would say, is collating all your say assets and liabilities together. And that's one of the things that we actually do at My Money Sage, where as a money management platform, you will have an option to aggregate all your assets and liabilities at one place, which can give you a 360-degree view of your finances. say a few of the assets that you can collect is, let's say, you can actually link your bank account, you can link your credit card account, loan account, and your investment account. When I say investments, you can link your mutual funds, you can link your equities, you can link your like EPS, NPS, and also like real estate. So name it, anything you can actually link. I mean, it could be your bonds, ETFs, or like any other investment or NCDs that you can actually track on our platform on a dynamic basis. So that gives you a holistic view of your assets and liabilities so that you can take prudent financial decisions. The second important part when it comes to like is like say financial planning, where you can also like map your goals and also link any of your assets or liabilities towards those goals. That is one of the important key, I mean, what you call key aspect of managing one's finances. And the third part is like, so you can also look at investing in various asset classes. The thing is like, since we are in SEBI registered RIA, we are actually like, we work on fees and we don't actually like charge you any commissions. So that itself is a huge value addition when you actually can shift from your regular plans to direct plans and save on commissions. That is one of the key aspects of our platform, and that can all be done at free. So I've shared the link. You can actually, I mean, you can actually sign up for a free plan. Meanwhile, you can also go through what you call the tax income tax filing services that we offer to our clients. And so if you want to avail any of the services from like say Sudhindra, you can actually offer any of the pricing plans that is there. So that is there on the platform. So you can actually look at I'll just take you through. Yeah. So this is the income tax filing plans that we have. Like I'm sure like Sudhindra was able to help you what you call in detail so that you can do it yourself. So suppose like say you feel that you will not be able to do it yourself. We are always there to help you. You may choose any of the plans that is being listed here, like based on your like current situation. And so yeah, so this is what it is like. If you also have any questions on like what you call My Money Sage, do ask us, and do refer our platform to your friends and relatives if you think there is value in whatever we are offering to you. And I think I want to thank Sudhindra for his like what you call detailed explanation and of like say how you can actually plan your taxes and like say file it in the more efficient manner. I think that he articulated in a very what you call eloquent manner. I'm sure like say you are able to take value out of this session. Please reach out to like what you call us with any of the feedback or suggestions also like in the follow-up mail that you will get. And if you have any questions to actually we can actually put it in the Q&A box. Otherwise I think we are good to like I think part. So is there any parting thoughts from your side?
No.
Yeah. So I think thank you all. Thank you for making it for this what you call wonderful session. Do sign on our platform if you're not yet done so, and do share like us with your friends and contacts whom you think should be benefited out of our expertise. Thank you everyone, and I think wish you a great weekend. Take care and do maintain COVID appropriate behavior. I'm sure like say you're all safe and take care. Thank you and bye bye.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhindra. Yeah.